All right, let's bring in our guests now. We have in the studio Mr. Akintunde Sawyer, Managing Director and CEO, Nigerian Education Loan Fund, that is NELFUND. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Mrs. Aguele, and thank you for having me here today.
It's Miss.
Miss Aguele.
Yes.
I beg your pardon.
All right, it's okay. All right, we've seen the first phase of the student loan scheme kicked off, and under 1 week we're hearing 70,000 registration and 38,000 loan application. How overwhelming has it been, looking at that?
Okay, so interesting. It hasn't been overwhelming. What I would say is that we have been very satisfied with our state of preparedness for what we expected, and what we expected happened. 9.5 million hits on our site. Some of them might have been multiple hits, but we had 9.5 million hits, and the site stood up to it. And what we have, more importantly, is 70,000 successful registrations to date, which means that 70,000 people have been on the site and have been able to successfully log their details and express an interest in applying for the loans. Out of that, we've had nearly 40,000 loan applications come through, which are due for consideration, and we'll be looking at that in the coming weeks as more and more applications come in. We're excited, we're not overwhelmed, we're optimistic that as time goes along, some of the hitches we've seen, some of the challenges that we've come across will be resolved. We're already resolving some of them. It's natural to have these sorts of hitches with any sort of IT project of this size, with this much pent-up demand in the country for education loans.
Okay, since you've already mentioned the hitches, which is which is something to be expected when you're dealing with a portal like that. Federal, state, federal polytechnics and of course federal tertiary institutions have already been included in the first phase, and we're hearing that state tertiary institutions will be given a chance in the coming weeks, 3 weeks thereabout. What are the measures you've actually put in place to address some of these hitches, so to say?
Okay, thank you. So as I said, we've been expecting, because of the pent-up demand in the country for financial support, financial aid to access education, we expected lots and lots of people to show a keen interest. The sort of hitches we've had are primarily related to the data integrity. So if you think about it, what we've actually done is created a system where the applicant comes in and provides a set of data, their JAM number, their NIN, their BVN, and then they're allowed to create a dashboard, if you like, an account where they put they create a username and a password. And then it goes on for them to be able to make the application itself. Now, when they make the application itself, there's data that is drawn on from the institutions. Now, I said in your report over 500 institutions you've identified. The institutions all have to provide the NELFUND with data on their department, the programs they run, the longevity of the programs, the faculties they belong to, the cost of the course, all of those details, and of course, more importantly, or most importantly, should I say, the details of every single student, either already in the institution or those who are coming in, which is where the JAM number, or I beg your pardon, the admission number, admission letter, and the matriculation number come in for verification based on what the student put in the first place. There are hitches there because sometimes these numbers don't match up. It's alphanumeric, so of course, if you miss out on a digit or you get an alphabet in the wrong place in the series of eligibility confirmation requirements that we have, what happens is that the system doesn't recognize it as matching, and in order to prevent fraud, it basically shuts you out. But we're resolving those as we go along.
And we also made to understand that there will be skills acquisition aspects to that. So students, thinking of collecting just money, there's more. Let's take a break. We'll pick up with that after the break. Glad you stayed tuned. The conversation is still on the first phase of the student loan scheme. Mr. Akintunde Sawyer, we're just going to pick up with the aspect of the skills acquisition. I want you to give us the specifics. Now, for students who are applying for this loan, I know a lot of them will just have at at the back of their minds that it's all about the money. But tell us the aspect for the training, you know, in various vocational fields that the loan applies for.
Okay, thank you. That's a great question. So the initial act did not include skills acquisition, but the President, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, in his wisdom when he retransmitted the bill for reenactment, included in the request to the National Assembly the inclusion of skills acquisition and skills training, vocational training for Nigerians. There's a recognition in that you know, what we actually need in this country is not just more people who are qualified academically, but that there are lots and lots of people in this country who are very good with their hands, with physical, vocational skills. And more importantly, the country actually needs it. We want to maintain infrastructure, we want to provide services, we want to ensure that we can actually make things, build things, make things happen, repair things. So this particular element of the law that NELFUND is also delighted to be able to take responsibility for is the ability to provide loans to those who want to go and further their talents, if you like, who want to go and further their ability to actually use their hands and their physical skills to make things happen. This is great because it captures a far greater number of Nigerians than perhaps even what we're seeing in the academic sector. And because this is a developing country, and because we need skills, we need people who can actually do things, we actually will benefit hugely from this. The challenge, though, is that we need to now set standards. What are the standards that electricians need to have, do plumbers need to have, tilers, bricklayers, mechanics? You know, these sorts of welders, these sorts of skills are incredibly useful to our socioeconomic future and fabric. And we just need to set the standards and make sure that those standards can be met. I'll tell you, one of the greatest impacts this will have is that rather than having people coming from abroad to come and do some of this work for us, we can actually train our people to do the work and keep some of that money in the country, keep some of that value in the country, and of course, reduce things like unemployment, reduce things like banditry, reduce things like people, you know, getting into petty crime, petty theft, and just having literally nothing to do. Lots and lots of things need to be fixed in this country, need to be done, and we're going to have great impact. What we're going to do is provide these people with the ability to go and enhance, sharpen their skills, and then get properly certified, properly qualified for this so that they're attractive to industry, attractive to manufacturers, and attractive to investors who want to come and invest in Nigeria to get things done.
Okay, Mr. Sawyer, I'll have to let you go now, but just give Nigerian student assurance in one word. How soon will it commence disbursement of the loan?
Okay, so the disbursement...
Just in few seconds.
Okay, disbursements of the loan, the approvals for the loans is going to happen in the next 20 days. We will approve. The value for the loans will start when the next academic session starts, which is when we start to show the value that we've got. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Akintunde Sawyer. He's the Managing Director, CEO, Nigerian Education Loan Fund. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
For the great work you're doing. And there is hope for Nigerian students. Let's take a break.